Another claim that is said by this group is that basically they said Ibn Khaldun denied the authenticity of the hadith of the Mahdi. And this claim really is the most academic claim, if you like, that is promoted by most of these people, simply because Ibn Khaldun is a famous historian and a relatively early authority. He's not that early. He died 808 AH, 808 after the Hijrah. So he's not that early, but he is still relatively from our times an earlier authority who can be quoted on this topic. Ibn Khaldun, as all of you know, he is mostly famous for his book on history, or actually to be precise, the Muqaddimah, the introduction to his history book. The actual history book of Ibn Khaldun, hardly anybody uses it. But he wrote a huge muqaddimah, an introduction to the history book. And in this muqaddimah, which is translated into English as well, he lays out, perhaps for the first time ever, an introductory theory of sociology and the ethics of human society. And that is why Ibn Khaldun is extremely famous, and he definitely was an intellectual of high standing. Nobody can deny that. However, a number of points need to be mentioned here. Firstly, supposing Ibn Khaldun did indeed state that the ahadith of the Mahdi are not authentic, supposing he did say that, okay, fine. Let's see what other scholars have to say. And this is, by the way, a common methodology employed by people who wish to promote an opinion. They only quote one scholar. And perhaps the scholar made that statement, fine, let us see what the other scholar said as well. With all due respect to that particular scholar, let us see what the other scholars of Islam had to say. And when we look at this issue, we find that many scholars of the past stated that the ahadith of the Mahdi are not just authentic, they are mutawatir. Mutawatir is the highest level of authenticity. Of these scholars is the Shafi'i scholar, Abu al-Hasan Muhammad ibn al-Husayn as-Sijzi, who died in the year 363 after the Hijrah. And he wrote that the reports about the Mahdi are mutawatir. Likewise, Imam al-Qurtubi, the famous Mufassir. Likewise, Abu al-Hajjaj al-Mizzi, the famous muhaddith and the one who was one of the first people who pioneered the documentation of the ilm al-rijal, or the sciences of writing down the narrators of men. Likewise, the Hafiz and the Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, the famous scholar Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, he also claimed that the ahadith of the Mahdi are mutawatir. Ibn Hajar, the Khatim al-Huffaz, he claimed that the ahadith are mutawatir. As-Sakhawi, As-Suyuti, and on. So many other names, all of whom are actually more famous than Ibn Khaldun. And remember, these are some of the ulama who claim that the ahadith of the Mahdi are mutawatir. As we said, that's the highest form of sahih. As for those who claim that the ahadith of the Mahdi are authentic and sahih, then the vast majority of scholars, past and present, Sufyan al-Thawri, al-Bayhaqi, Shaykh Islam al-Taymiyyah, many dozens and dozens of ulama, they all claim that the ahadith of the Mahdi are authentic. We are just listing those who said they are mutawatir. So here you have, let's say, 10 scholars who are claiming the hadith are mutawatir. Ibn Khaldun is saying that they are da'if. What do we do? This is only 1 versus 10. Likewise, many scholars wrote entire books on the Mahdi, or at least they included special sections in their books about the Mahdi. Amongst them is the famous scholar Muhaddith of Yemen, Abdul Razzaq al-San'ani, who died 211 Hijrah. He wrote a book on the Mahdi. Likewise, Nu'aym ibn Hammad, who died 228 Hijrah. He wrote one of the largest encyclopedias of the science of the Day of Judgment. Really a huge and massive work about the ahadith and the athar about the science of the Day of Judgment. A large section of it is dedicated to the Mahdi. Imam Abu Dawood, the famous author of the Sunan. The Sunan is divided into many different books, kitabs. He has an entire kitab called Kitabul Mahdi, an entire kitab dedicated to the ahadith of the Mahdi. Likewise, the Imam al-Tirmidhi and Ibn Majah, they have assigned special chapters in their famous works in which they mention the ahadith of the Mahdi. Babu Dhikr al-Mahdi, or the chapter concerning the Mahdi. Ibn Kathir, the famous historian and the Mufassir, he mentions that he wrote a book solely on the Mahdi, although unfortunately it appears that it is lost in our times. However, still his book, which is the Nihayatul Bidayah, or his book which is the conclusion to Bidayatul Nihaya, that book which is about the signs of the Day of Judgment, has many traditions about the Mahdi. Likewise, another famous author and scholar, Jalaluddin as-Suyuti, who died 911 Hijrah. Jalaluddin as-Suyuti, by the way, is one of the most prolific writers that the Muslim Ummah has ever produced, for there is hardly a topic about which he did not write. Jalaluddin as-Suyuti also wrote an entire book about the Mahdi, and this is one of the main books about the ahadith of the Mahdi, in which he compiled and listed almost all of the ahadith found about the Mahdi, and he entitled it Al-Urf al-Wardi fi Akhbar al-Mahdi. And dozens of other writers and scholars as well, such as Ibn Hajar al-Haythami and Mullah Ali Qari and the Yemeni scholar al-Shawkani, and in our times the Muhaddith and the noble Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad. All of these people, they wrote specific books about the Mahdi. So let's put the opinion of Ibn Khaldun in its place and look at it in light of all of the other opinions and works and statements of the other ulama about the Mahdi. Secondly, Ibn Khaldun, no doubt, is a famous historian and a pioneer in the science of sociology, but he is not a scholar of hadith. Therefore, he is pronouncing a verdict in a field in which he is not a specialist, and this needs to be put into perspective. This is because all of the famous scholars of hadith, they accepted the hadith of the Mahdi. So we take from the specialists their verdicts in their area of expertise. Ibn Khaldun is a historian and a sociologist. He is not a muhaddith. Even if he said that the ahadith of the Mahdi are weak, all of this has to be taken in its place. He is not as qualified as other people are. And lastly, the fact of the matter is that Ibn Khaldun did not categorically deny all of the ahadith of the Mahdi. Rather, he writes, and this is another common problem, people read something and they just spread it without verifying its authenticity. He writes, and I translate directly from his Al-Muqaddim in Arabic, Volume 1, page 574, after mentioning some of the ahadith of the Mahdi and some of the problems about them, he says, so these are some of the ahadith that the scholars mentioned regarding the Mahdi and his advent towards the end of time. And as you can see, none of them are free from criticism except for a few, and perhaps even fewer than this. End quote. None of them are free from criticism except for a few and perhaps even fewer. Meaning that, okay, fine, most of them are weak according to Ibn Khaldun, but a very small few are free from criticism, meaning they are acceptable. So the response is, fine, if you believe that the majority of the hadith of the Mahdi are true, the few remaining ones that are authentic are a sufficient proof in order to establish the belief in the Mahdi. So this claim too then can easily be understood, and it is a misunderstanding from Ibn Khaldun, and even if he said it, there are numerous scholars before him and after him who disagreed with him. Another argument that is used by those who deny the Mahdi is basically historical. And they say that, well, basically the fact that people have misused and abused the concept of the Mahdi throughout Islamic history, this has basically in their eyes watered the concept down. Such people, they feel that the concept of a Mahdi, the idea of a Mahdi, is just another tool employed by those who wish to start a following or rebel against the Muslim state. Now, while it is true that historically this has been the case, that these people have tried to promote their own agendas by pretending that they are the Mahdi, the fact that this occurred has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that the Prophet ﷺ did indeed predict his coming and that he will fill the earth with justice and peace as it was filled with injustice and oppression before him.